All right, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed the open spaces. I know it's a long day and everyone's super excited to get to the raffles, so we are going to kick off our speaker panel. My name is Jessica Clark. I am one of our organizers. I help out with the call for papers. And I'm super excited to be moderating this panel discussion. I have a lot of really hard questions, very challenging. We are waiting on one panelist. He's going to join us in a moment. So we'll make sure that we ask all of the questions about him while he's gone. So when he comes here, he doesn't
when
realize.
Seth shows up, just everyone start clapping and cheering, like really loud. Make it very uncomfortable.
Yes, very uncomfortable. Okay, anyway, so I'm super excited to be joined by some of our speakers from today, and actually one non-speaker, Mark Anderson, who is also an organizer, has graciously accepted an invitation to opine on this panel.
I think I was voluntold, but that's disputed.
Exactly. So we're going to start off with a little bit of an easy question here for the group, just to kind of break the ice. So during the break, we were enjoying some throwback jams that we're playing over the speakers for those that maybe weren't in the room. And so our icebreaker question is, what is kind of a throwback movie that you would either love to see remade or is your guilty pleasure?
I'll start it off, and I think it's kind of being remade, so maybe this is a good, and I have younger kids that are getting to this age, but I like flying, I like space, I like comedy, so Spaceballs is amazing. So I was happy as you can be hearing that I don't know what they're calling it, Spaceball 2 or whatever, but it's not the movie we asked for, but it's the movie we needed.
Love that.
It's 102 miles to Chicago. It's dark. I mean, we had a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. You want to get that? All right, Blues Brothers. I love
Yep. Awesome.
I also throw in a vote for anything that Mel Brooks has done, from the Chairs movie that was his first movie to his later works. And I am also looking forward to Spaceballs 2. And the other night I was watching Blazing Saddles, which if you don't know about it, and you're under 25, you might want to avoid.
And if you're in the helping teams improve thing, watch Rustler's Rhapsody, and then and drink something while you're doing it, because you will get triggered.
I do think there's an interesting, for us maybe more experienced people, also known as oldish, is it's not the younger generation's fault that they weren't born at the right time. So curating a 80s and 90s movie list that they need to see that they haven't seen yet for the folks you work with that might be a little out of college or first few years isn't the worst thing. So we've had some good debates on some of the teams that I'm on, of like, here's your pop culture things that you kind of need to go through, and you can kind of come back and say that these were terrible, why did you make me do this, versus actually this wasn't half bad. So
I just thought of this. For those of you who really like old movies, there's a movie from the 1960s called Colossus the Forbin Project. 1970s. Oh my God. The idea is that there's a supercomputer that becomes sentient, and it has this artificial intelligence, and it starts taking over the world. And they suddenly discovered there's a second artificial intelligence computer in Russia. This is the height of the Cold War, and scary things happen.
Well, awesome. We've added to everyone's movie list here. I don't have personally much time for throwback movies these days. It's all K-pop Demon Hunter in my house. So just fun fact, actually you thought that this was a raffle later on or after this session. It's actually who does the best version of Golden or Takedown. So this is your karaoke moment for those that know the movie. So anyways, moving on to actual questions. So we had a lot of talks today and yesterday on AI and automation. And obviously, these are becoming very central to DevOps practices. Where do you see them genuinely adding value today? And then where do you see more of a hyper risk overshadowing the benefits?
Honestly, I've personally gotten value out of doing brainstorming on what we should be doing with a product. Of course, developing, refactoring code, a lot of stuff that takes a lot of toil to unwind as long as I can control, what's going on. But honestly, the risk is that people get either lazy or pushed into feature instead of quality. And you're going to just explode your tech debt. It'll be terrible. And if you're not incentivizing quality process, if you're incentivizing speed, you get what you deserve.
I think some of the similar, I think the word toil, right, and where can I just focus on like the higher leverage things is where the humans still kind of excel, but I think there's a lot of, in the toil space, especially around common upgrades, migrations, like things that are across the software delivery ecosystem. I think I think you mentioned end of life. Do you know when your database goes end of life, end of service, right? There's a whole domain there and everyone's got to kind of keep up. So like I think there's a lot of leverage there of how do I upgrade library XYZ or data store or whatever. Would you say what's the risk? Is that?
When does like some of the hype or risk like overshadow the benefits?
Okay, I'm going to make a very dated reference for the Southwest folks because I used to work there. There's someone there that like told me, know what you're doing, right? And I tweak that to know what the AI is doing for you, and with that, and I don't know, Shane, if you remember Matt, right? Matt told me that way back in the day, Matt Chapman. And the risk is like just not knowing what's going on, because in the end, we are responsible for what we build. Like we have to support it. Our customers rely on us to have it do the right thing. And so I think someone said, I want to say getting lazy, but not kind of understanding what you're using the tool for, and therefore having that risk creep in and you just don't know about it. So.
One thing real quick. I just want to point out that the deck I gave earlier today, I took 3 blog posts, fed it in a Gamma app. It spit out about 80% of that. All I did was edits. A deck normally takes me about a month to make sure I'm really getting the flow together the way I want. That took me a total of 3 or 4 days.
A couple months ago, I had a flower bed that I needed some bark to fill into for the wife's decision. It was 3 feet wide, 10 feet long, and I go to Lowe's and I look at the bags and they had 0.2 meters of cubic volume in there. So I quickly asked Google, how many bags do I need to fill this amount? Wonderful answer. For someone who was raised by teachers who told you, you need to learn how to do all this mathematical stuff because you'll never have a calculator with you, cell phone in the pocket. The trouble is a lot of these all the large language models right now are incentivized to make guesses. They're not incentivized to be correct. So they're kind of making predictive futures. Like several years ago, the processor manufacturers decided, well, if there's a branch coming up, we'll just calculate both sides of the branch, and whichever one we come to at the last minute, we'll take the right or whatever the correct choice. Trouble is these large language models may not know what the right choice is, so they're going to be giving us bad information. And if you can't spot bad information, it's like going to the store and buying bad fruit. It's going to rot before you can use it.
Know what you're doing.
Have you guys seen an example? I think verifying what we see coming out of these models is super important. And I liked your comment about like making sure we understand like kind of what's going on behind the scenes. Have you guys seen any examples where maybe the automation or the AI kind of didn't solve the problem and actually created a larger problem? Have you seen that in practice?
There's a great one. A couple months ago, there were some lawyers who submitted a brief to a judge, and the judge, being the typical well-trained lawyer, started looking up the citations and couldn't find them, and called the lawyers into his office and said, "Where did you get these citations?" "Oh, the AI gave them to us." Two things you don't do to a judge is lie to them and tell them that you have bad sources for information. Well, these folks were risking their career. They're risking the life or livelihood of their client. And they really had upset someone who could damage their careers for the rest of their lives. So there are examples out there, and unfortunately they're going to be more common.
Yeah, if it's not well documented. Does anybody in here use HubSpot? No? Yes? I'm so sorry. I have a vendetta against those developers. Most people apparently don't interact with the HubSpot API, and the HubSpot API is terribly documented. And for the last year, I've had to write integrations with it. AI doesn't do that very well unless you give it a lot of help.
Mine isn't as much AI, but I think it's more automation. But like we have trouble knowing our blast radius with automation and accidentally writing stuff that destroys or ruins a bunch of infrastructure in the cloud. We can call those APIs really, really fast. So my whole thing is like if we don't do it well now, how is giving up a little bit of that control to something else and understanding like, hey, let's run this against 100 things rather than 100,000 things, and that way we know we can apologize to 100 machines fairly easily, and versus impacting everyone at the same time.
Okay. Massively triggered. Nobody gets access to prod, only through a pipeline.
Speaking of pipelines, so a couple of the talks we had today were actually about some of our pipelines and organizations standardizing them. And so I think there's kind of a bit of a divide of organizations feeling like they need to standardize to a pipeline, and then others wanting to give teams the autonomy to be able to do. Seth Elliott, everyone. Yeah. So wanting to standardize pipelines versus giving the teams autonomy, what's the right balance, and how do you know if you've gone too far in either direction?
So I'm going to brag a little bit. This wasn't my work. I was just part of the team that did this. And I didn't realize how well we'd done this at Walmart until I'd left Walmart and saw the pain everybody else was in. And I saw Capital One's talk. Guys, you're doing a really good job. About 6 years behind, But no, it's really, sorry, I had to brag a little bit. But no, there's certain, the role of platform is to be the negotiator between the enterprise and the developers to make it easy for developers to ship and hard to make mistakes. That's the role of platform. And that means that there are non-negotiables that developers don't like that will be non-negotiable to the platform, but they should be extensible so they can add the quality gates themselves in self-service. Security, compliance, that sort of stuff, that will happen. You can't bypass it. I'm sorry it slows you down. But you're responsible for your quality gates, so we're going to make it as easy as possible for you to add additional quality gates. Blackout dates, we control blackout dates. You don't get to bypass them.
Yes, and I'm going to agree with that 100%. My experience at Amazon was interesting. I'm not holding this up as what you should do, just what they do actually do, which is, you've heard of the two-pizza team concept. That's not just about the size of the team, it's about team autonomy, whether it's pipelines or anything else, right? And there's a ton of they give each team a lot of autonomy over their own code, their own services, to the point that they have to carry the pagers and they have to support it. It's a very pure DevOps model in that the developers are the operators. Like there's literally no wall because it's the same people. And it's with guardrails. It's exactly what you were saying. Like it's not like each team gets to decide what their own security rules are or even how they implement them, right? There are centralized security teams who have both tools and consultants that teams use. Teams periodically have to get reviews. So it's providing those guardrails in place. The other interesting thing about team autonomy, which now falls outside the tools range, is I found when I worked on the Amazon side of the house versus the AWS side of the house, as a TPM, as a technical program manager, that was like one of the most important roles at Amazon because teams with autonomy can say no, right? Hello, ordering team, you have this system here. We'd like you to like change one of these APIs so we could launch this new product. They're like, yeah, come back to us in a year when we're doing our roadmap. I know it doesn't sound very agile, does it? But those very big teams are like that. So now it becomes a big negotiation where you're talking about the value of what you're doing and value relative to the other things they have on their schedule, and it becomes this multi-point negotiation, which I always found kind of amusing that how things are done. It's not very formalized at all.
We used VPs for that.
Escalation, right? So escalation shouldn't be a dirty word. That's the one thing. There's a lot of positives and negatives to Amazon culture. Let me say that right off the bat. One of the positives was escalation. When you go to your manager, it's not, I'm going to get you in trouble. It's, we can't agree. Let's bring this next level. And then at that level, we can't agree. Let's bring this next, until you get to someone who owns enough scope that they can make the decision.
I'll just say that was our golden standard, exactly the way you're talking about operating, right? Is that I run it, I build it, I have the autonomy of over all my quality. Platform, we didn't try to predict your quality, we just gave you the tools so you could own it.
So I think it sounds like we're all kind of leaning towards a bit more of kind of a centralized model or seeing the benefits of that. Have you seen any, or what are kind of some of the hidden costs or trade-offs in when pipelines are too centralized?
The thing that terrifies me, and I was talking to somebody else about this earlier today, where all the teams have been told they now own infrastructure. That means every single team has to learn all of the same mistakes again and again and again. Where with a centralized platform, the really critical stuff gets owned by the platform. And then like the team that I was on in the platform, our job was to teach people how to use the platform effectively so they wouldn't keep making the same mistakes again and again and again, right? And so providing that to scale, it just doesn't scale for everybody to own their own, all the things. That's the DevOps thing that management keeps getting wrong. It's they don't own all the infrastructure. The infrastructure is available as a service that's safe for them to use so that they can do what they need to do to get their job done.
Mark, I know you have opinions on this.
I mean, I think I look at platforms as a massive amplifier, and it can be very positive, but it can also have side effects. So if the platform team requires everyone to change everything and everyone's on that platform, then you have a whole lot of work all at the same time. And so I think I won't say it's even a con, it's just an awareness that if you're changing whether that's interface or or you have to add something, you can get the leverage of implementing that, but also understanding that everyone might take that pain all at once and just being cognizant of that, because, or if even, gosh forbid, a human makes a mistake and maybe doesn't design the 100% perfect API the first time, and has to change, then you've got to figure out how everyone absorbs that.
Yeah, and I talked about the change management required even for, we're adding a new security gate. It's like you tell people we're adding a new security gate. Then you announce in GitHub, we're adding a new security gate. You're going to break your pipelines in 30 days. And then 30 days from now, we're like, we really mean it. Now you're going to go into warn mode. It's going to warn your pipelines for the next 30 days. But in 30 days, we're really going to break your pipelines. And then in 30 days, we break your pipelines. And you start screaming because you spent the last 90 days not paying attention to what we said. And so we take the gate back into warn mode for you and then say, you've got 30 days, right? And so it's a change management process where you're broadcasting all the time and understanding people aren't listening.
Are you implying that people don't always pay attention to their emails and notifications? That never happens.
You know what? My priority in making sure that you're secure and compliant is not your priority. You just want to throw your garbage out there as fast as you can. So, we have to negotiate.
I don't know how many of you have ever been consultants, but the consultants, you have to work from the opposite angle. I was working at the 5th largest retailer, well, they were the 5th largest retailer, which a lot of folks don't know, they're headquartered in Dallas. And they had a new section head come in, and she looked at, we were running several different databases, and her decision was, we are going to have one database, and that shall be Oracle. And I wasn't on Oracle, and it's like, okay, well, there goes my job. In 30 days, I'm out the door. And then I realized, aha, consultant hat. hey, I support your idea 100%. The only trouble is you have $1.5 million of cash sales information coming into a MySQL database. Let me know the budget number and we'll start conversion right now. So about 40 minutes later, a second memo came out and said, hey, we're going to have 2 databases.
That's really funny that you'd mentioned that moving to Oracle. So circa 2015, you probably read about or heard about Amazon did a major shift away from Oracle, purging all Oracle from the company, which is a big difference. When I joined in 2005, I was on the catalog team, and it was just a huge Oracle database with like 15 partitions, and the big project of the day was we're going to add 3 more partitions, right? And then 2015, Project Rolling Stone came along and said, everybody off of Oracle, every system off of Oracle. And it's interesting because it's a great example of how 90% of what teams do is autonomous, like them self-organizing and choosing what they're working on. And then 10% to 5% were these S-team goals, or the S-team is all the leadership, S-team goals that were just crammed down on them. And it wasn't, you're not going to ignore an email, because you're going to get an email and you're going to get a ticket, and the ticket's going to be assigned to you, and that ticket has an escalation path, and if you don't start ticking off boxes on that ticket, VPs are going to be aware of this, and you're going to, your manager and your VP is going to be informed about it. So that's how Amazon manages some of those, top-down kind of projects, and I think that's okay. Like, if everybody's kind of like saying that's awful, for some things you have to go top-down. If the company says we're getting off of Oracle, the only way to do that is top-down. The other example of top-down is moving to AWS, right? I mean, so like Amazon went through several migration phases to move to AWS, and that had to be a top-down priority.
Yeah, when I was in logistics, I had this libertarian view about team autonomy. We get to choose whatever languages we want, whatever databases we want, because we were, driving ahead to autonomous teams. Then I moved to platform. Yeah, I became enlightened.
All right, so we have time for one more question. So this is you get a 1-minute answer, no back and forth, or maybe 30-second answer. Final question. Looking ahead 3 to 5 years, what new challenges do you think will reshape DevOps? Or, on the flip side, what old problems do you think we'll still be wrestling with?
I don't know where we're going to get senior developers from. I'm honestly very concerned about where we're going to get senior developers, because I saw this the other day. Someone said, well, where are we going to get senior developers? Because how do you train junior developers when there's so much AI and they don't get to learn some of the pain that we had to learn? I said, are you going to hire them from other companies? That decided, because all these companies can decide that some other company is going to train juniors and we'll just hire the seniors. But what I take away from that is my pay is going to increase up until the point where I retire.
Many years ago, I had a friend whose dad was retiring after 35 years with the same company, and a year before he retired, he went to his boss and said, I need someone part-time to get my knowledge out of my head, because I'm the only one who knows certain things, and I need to download it. Boss didn't do anything. 6 months later, he said, I need 2 people full-time to learn the arcane stuff that only I know, because I have this institutional knowledge that needs to be passed on, or you're in trouble. 3 months before he retired, he said, okay, I need a full team, 10-hour days for 6 weeks to download all this information to show how the operational decisions were made, past histories, why we do it this way. Boss ignored him. The final day at his job, he put a letter into HR and said, I'm available for consulting. $10,000 cash for 5 hours initial consultation. Every hour after that is $500, must be paid cash 2 weeks in advance. The day after he retired, he got a phone call, your check is ready.
That's just awesome. So in terms of what the transformative change is, it's obviously AI, but I don't want to give that as my answer because that's a boring answer. So I'm going to say I think the biggest challenge is purity and splintering. Like when platform engineering came out as a thing, I'm like, why is this a thing? This is just DevOps, right? I mean, and people wanting to take things. Was it you that has that thing making fun of SAFe? Yeah, I love that website. What was it? It was like making transformative change without changing culture or something. enterprise transformation without the risk of culture change. So like things like SAFe come along, and I think SAFe's pretty bad too. And things like I'm not saying platform engineering's bad, but people trying to throw names on it and then throw certifications on it. No offense to the sponsors doing certifications, and trying to like throw gates on it. We just got to do the right practice and share the practices. That's what DevOps Days is. It's about us being here, sharing practices. I think that always has to be the top. The culture has to be the top, not the names or the certifications or the purity tests.
A real quick pro tip on DevOps, it's just one thing. Why can't I deliver today? Just solve that problem. You're good.
I think mine is slightly, what are we going to continue to battle and still be a challenge? And I think it's the resiliency and dependency problem. And maybe I've lived that too much in a few different areas, and it's super hard, but I think we'll make a lot of things faster, and we'll solve a lot of other problems with whether it's Gen AI tools or whatever, but how do we keep systems up and available, or and not just from a high availability, whether it's disaster recovery, that sort of thing, I think is still going to be a challenge because it's such a multifaceted problem, and it doesn't happen enough that we care enough about it until it really happens, and it hurts, 1,000 million X. And so things that don't happen often, like we tend not to do until it's really, really painful. And so, anyways, that's my problem. We'll still, I think Seth, you'll still have plenty of work ahead of you at RPO or wherever you're at, and helping people solve those challenges.
Appreciate this answer.
He didn't pay me either.
Well, we did record this session, so we'll be able to check back in a couple years to see how we've progressed against your predictions. So thank you so much to all of you for participating in this panel. It was awesome to get to hear from you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.